Before you begin, we've learned that there are 3 things to watch out for when you begin studying the 4 disciplines more deeply. First, 4DX says easy, does hard. The disciplines will sound deceptively simple, but they take sustained work to implement. As one of our clients put it, says easy, does hard. Don't be misled by this simplicity. The 4 disciplines are powerful in part because they are easy to understand, but successful implementation takes significant effort over an extended period. It requires sustained commitment. If the goal you're seeking isn't one you just have to achieve, you might not make the sustained commitment necessary. The payoff, however, is that you'll not only achieve this goal, but also build the organizational muscle and capability to achieve the next goal and the next. Second, 4DX is counterintuitive. Each of the 4 disciplines are paradigm shifting and might even fly in the face of your intuition. While it might seem instinctive for you to have lots of goals, the more you have, the fewer you will achieve with excellence. If you want to achieve a certain goal, you don't focus on the goal itself, but on the lead measures that drive the goal. As you implement each discipline, at least initially, you'll be doing things at first glance that might not seem to make sense and that run counterintuitive to your instincts. Let us emphasize, though, that the 4 disciplines are the result of serious, intense experimentation and hypothesis testing over many years. Everything you learn here has been thoroughly vetted. The good news is that once you gain some experience with the 4 disciplines, what seemed awkward in the beginning will become more comfortable and more effective. And third, 4DX is an operating system. The 4 disciplines are a matched set, not a menu of choices. While every one of the disciplines has value, their real power is in how they work together and in sequence. Each discipline sets the stage for the next discipline. Leave one out, and you'll have far less effective results. Think of the 4 disciplines as the operating system of a computer. Once it's installed, you can use it to run almost any strategy you choose, but you need the whole system for it to work. As we move through the next chapters, the reasons for this will become clear. Discipline 1, focus on the wildly important. The first discipline is to focus your finest effort on the 1 or 2 goals that will make all the difference, instead of giving mediocre effort to dozens of goals. Execution starts with focus. Without it, the other 3 disciplines won't be any help to you at all. Why do almost all leaders struggle to narrow their focus? It's not because they don't think focus is needed. Every week, we work with dozens of leadership teams across the world, and almost without exception, they acknowledge that they need greater focus. Despite this desire, they continue to find themselves with too many competing priorities, pulling their teams in too many different directions. One of the first things we want you to know is that you're not alone. The inability of leaders to focus is a problem of epidemic proportions. We also want you to know that when we talk about narrowing your focus in Discipline 1, we are not talking about narrowing the size and complexity of your whirlwind. Although over time, attention to wigs might affect that. Your whirlwind includes all of the urgent activities that are necessary to sustain your business day to day. Focusing on the wildly important means narrowing the number of goals you are attempting to accomplish beyond the day-to-day demands of the whirlwind. Simply put, Discipline 1 is about applying more energy against fewer goals. Because when it comes to setting goals, the law of diminishing returns is as real as the law of gravity. If a team focuses on 2 or even 3 goals beyond the demands of their whirlwind, they can often accomplish them. However, if they set 4 to 10 goals, our experience has been that they will achieve only 1 or 2. They'll be going backwards. If they go after 11 to 20 in addition to their whirlwind, they lose all focus. Confronted with so many goals, the team members will stop listening, let alone executing. Why is this so? The fundamental principle at work in Discipline 1 is that human beings are genetically hardwired to do one thing at a time with excellence. You're probably thinking proudly that you're a great multitasker and can get a lot of things done at the same time. But to the wildly important goal, you want to devote your best efforts. Steve Jobs of Apple had a big company to run and could have proudly brought many more products to market than he did. but he chose to focus on a handful of wildly important products. His focus was legendary, and so were his results. Science tells us the human brain can give full focus to only one object at any given moment. You can't even give your best effort to driving a car while talking on a mobile phone and eating a burger, let alone juggle multiple important business goals at once. MIT neuroscientist Earl Miller says trying to concentrate on two tasks causes an overload of the brain's processing capacity, particularly when people try to perform similar tasks at the same time, such as writing an email and talking on the phone. They compete to use the same part of the brain. Trying to carry too much, the brain simply slows down. If this is true of a simple task like processing emails and phone calls, think of the impact of losing focus on the goals that could transform your business. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's gateway, just can't handle the daily flood that comes at us, because it's designed to deal with teaspoons rather than tidal waves of information. In our culture of multitasking, according to Professor Clifford Nass of Stanford University, quote, "The neural circuits devoted to scanning, skimming, and multitasking are expanding and strengthening, while those used for reading and thinking deeply with sustained concentration are weakening or eroding." Close quote. What's the consequence? Quote, "Habitual multitaskers may be sacrificing performance on primary tasks. They are suckers for irrelevancy." Close quote. According to Jordan Grafman, quote, "Improving our ability to multitask actually hampers our ability to think deeply and creatively. The more you multitask, the less deliberative you become, the less you're able to think and reason out a problem." Close quote. Of course, you don't have to overload the brain. You can leverage the brain's capacity to concentrate superbly on one wildly important goal at a time, while still being aware of the other priorities. There's no better illustration of this principle than in an airport control tower. Right now, more than 100 airplanes might be approaching, taking off, or taxiing around, and all of them are very important, especially if you happen to be on one of them. But for the air traffic controller, only one airplane is wildly important right now, the one that's landing at this moment. The controller is aware of all the other planes on the radar. She's keeping track of them, but right now, all her talent and expertise is solely focused on one flight. If she doesn't get that flight on the ground safely and with total excellence, then nothing else she might achieve is really going to matter much. She lands one airplane at a time. WIGs are like that. They are the goals you must achieve with total excellence beyond the circling priorities of your day-to-day. To succeed, you must be willing to make the hard choices that separate what is wildly important from all the many other merely important goals on your radar. Then you must approach that WIG with focus and diligence until it is delivered, as promised, with excellence. That doesn't mean that you abandon all of your other important goals. They're still on your radar, but they don't require your finest diligence and effort right now. Still, some of those goals might never be worthy of your finest diligence and effort. Some of them never should have taken off in the first place. People who try to push many goals all at once usually wind up doing a mediocre job on all of them. You can ignore the principle of focus, but it won't ignore you. Or you can leverage this principle to achieve your top goal one at a time, again and again. The leader's challenge. So here's the big question. Why is there so much pressure towards expanding rather than narrowing the goals? If you understand the need to focus, why is it so difficult to actually do it? You might say that as a leader, it's because you can always see more than a dozen existing things that need to improve and another dozen new opportunities you'd like to be chasing on any given day. On top of that, there are other people and other people's agendas that can be adding to your goals, especially if they are from higher up in the organization. However, more often than any of these external forces, there's one real culprit that creates most of the problem. You. In the words of the old cartoon Pogo, we have met the enemy, and he is us. Although the tendencies that drive you to the higher side of the scale are well-intentioned, in a very real sense, you are often your own worst enemy. Being aware of these tendencies is a good place to start. Let's examine a few of them candidly. One reason you may drive your team to take on too much is that, as a leader, you tend to be ambitious and creative. You are exactly the kind of individual organizations like to promote. The problem is that creative, ambitious people always want to do more, not less. If this describes you, you're almost hardwired to violate the first discipline of execution. Another reason you might lead your team to go after too many goals is to hedge your bets. In other words, if your team pursues everything, then it seems likely that something might work. It ensures that if you fail, no one can question the level of effort your team gave. Even though you know that more is not better, it looks better, especially to a person above you. So, you may resist the increased accountability for results that would come with fewer goals and instead rely on the sheer volume of effort to drive your success. However, the greatest challenge you face in narrowing your goals is simply that it requires you to say no to a lot of good ideas. 4DX may even mean saying no to some great ideas, at least for now. Nothing is more counterintuitive for a leader than saying no to a good idea, and nothing is a bigger destroyer of focus than always saying yes. What makes it even harder is that these good ideas aren't presented all at once, wrapped in a nice little bundle so that choosing among them would be simple. Instead, they filter in one at a time. Alone, each idea seems to make so much sense that it's almost impossible for you to say no, so you fall into a trap of your own making. We believe all leaders facing this challenge should have this quote prominently displayed in their office. There will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. We can't overemphasize the importance of focusing on only one or two wigs at once. It's counterintuitive, but it must happen. Before Apple was named Company of the Decade in the United States by multiple sources, then COO Tim Cook, now CEO, said to the company's shareholders, quote, "We are the most focused company that I know of or have read of or have any knowledge of. We say no to good ideas every day. We say no to great ideas. In order to keep the amount of things we focus on very small in number, so that we can put enormous energy behind the ones we do choose. The table each of you are sitting at today, you could probably put every product on it that Apple makes, yet Apple's revenue last year was $40 billion. Apple's determination to say no to good ideas has had devastating consequences for their competitors. We once worked with a manufacturer that competed directly with Apple's iPhone. When we met with the leader responsible for creating a new interface to compete with the iPhone, how would you like that assignment, by the way? He was more than a little discouraged. "It's really not fair," he said, shaking his head. "Between our domestic and international operations, we make over 40 different phones. They only make one." We couldn't have said it better ourselves. As Stephen R. Covey says, you have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, unapologetically, to say no to other things. And the way you do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside. Once you understand the importance of saying no to good ideas in order to keep your team's focus narrow, you can avoid the first of two focus traps. However, the second trap, trying to turn everything in the whirlwind into a wig, is even more common. Once caught in it, you try to turn everything in the whirlwind into a goal. Within the whirlwind are all of your existing measurements for running the organization today. It's perfectly appropriate for your team to spend 80% of their time and energy sustaining or incrementally improving the whirlwind. Keeping the ship afloat should be job one, but if they're spending 100% of their energy trying to significantly improve all of those dials at once, you will have lost your focus. Applying even pressure to all of the dials in the whirlwind is like trying to make holes in a piece of paper by applying even pressure with all of your fingers. You can't press on any one of the dials with enough force to drive a change in human behavior. Many of the dials require dozens of changes in human behavior in order to move them. Focusing on one wig is like punching one finger through the paper. all of your strength goes into making that whole. Unless you can achieve your goal with a stroke of the pen, success is going to require your team to change their behavior. And they simply cannot change that many behaviors at once, no matter how badly you want them to. Trying to significantly improve every measure in the whirlwind will consume all of your time and leave you with very little to show for it. So beyond avoiding these two traps, refusing to say no to all the good ideas and trying to make everything in the whirlwind into a goal, what should you do? Narrow your focus to one or two wildly important goals and consistently invest the team's time and energy into them. In other words, if you want high-focus, high-performance team members, they must have something wildly important to focus on. Identifying your wildly important goals. A wildly important goal, or WIG, is a goal that can make all the difference because it's your strategic tipping point. You're going to commit to apply a disproportionate amount of energy to it, the 20% that is not used up in the whirlwind. But how do you decide which of the many possible goals should be your WIG? Sometimes the choice of a WIG is obvious, but at other times it can be confusing. If you try to select your WIG by asking yourself, what's most important, you may find your mind running in circles. Why? Because the urgent priorities in your whirlwind are always competing to be the most important, and a very good argument can usually be made for choosing any of them. To illustrate this problem, imagine the leadership team in a manufacturing plant having this conversation. I'm telling you, quality is the most important thing, and it should be our WIG, says one person. Well, don't forget, it's our production that pays the bills around here, says another. I'm sorry, but I disagree with both of you, says a third. Safety has to be the most important. Have you ever had one of your people seriously hurt in an accident? If you have, you'd agree. The result is frustration and confusion, along with an inevitable and paradoxical loss of focus. The problem in this conversation is that the leaders are asking the wrong question. In determining your wildly important goal, don't ask, what's most important? Instead, begin by asking, if every other area in our operation remained at its current level of performance, what's the one area where change would have the greatest impact? This question changes the way you think and lets you clearly identify the focus that would make all the difference. Remember, 80% of your team's energy will still be directed at sustaining the whirlwind. So ignore the temptation to worry that by making one or two goals most important, your team will be ignoring everything else. And once you stop worrying about everything else going backwards, you can start moving forward on your WIG. In the words of Discipline 1, you can focus on the wildly important. Your wildly important goal will come from one of two categories, either from within the whirlwind or from outside it. Within the whirlwind, it could be something so badly broken that it must be fixed, or it could be a key element of your value proposition that isn't being delivered. Poor project completion time, out-of-control costs, unsatisfactory customer service are all good examples. However, it could also be an area in which your team is already performing well and where leveraging this strength could result in significant impact. For example, increasing patient satisfaction in a hospital from the 85th percentile to the 95th percentile could increase your revenues dramatically. Outside the whirlwind, the choices tend to be about repositioning yourself strategically. Launching a new product or service, either to counter a competitive threat or seize a huge opportunity, could be a WIG that would make all the difference. Remember that this type of WIG will require an even greater change in behavior since it will be completely new to your team. Whether your WIG comes from within the whirlwind or outside it, your real aim is not only to achieve it, but also to then make the new level of performance a natural part of your team's operation. In essence, once a WIG is achieved, it goes back into the whirlwind. Every time this happens, the whirlwind changes. It isn't as chaotic. Chronic problems are resolved and new performance levels are sustained. In essence, it's a much higher performing whirlwind. Ultimately, this is what enables your team to pursue the next WIG from a stronger foundation. Sometimes choosing your WIG is about more than selecting the aspect of your business where the greatest results are desired. It's about a WIG so fundamental to the heart of your mission that achieving it defines your existence as an organization. We got to work with the new president of a large thrift store chain just as he was asking himself these questions. His predecessor had put the company on a firm financial and operational footing, updating marketing and advertising, the look and the feel of the stores, and the accounting procedures. When we got into the wig discussion, some of his reports thought this emphasis needed to continue. Others wanted more emphasis on hiring more disabled workers. Still others argued that their top wig should be growth. The range of choices was baffling. To help the team find common ground, the new leader asked everyone to ponder the mission of the organization. Quote, to promote self-reliance among the disabled and displaced, close quote. With the company in a solid financial and operational position, could it be that the area where they now wanted the greatest results might be more directly related to their mission? Gradually, a wig emerged from this experience, one they had not even considered before. Quote, help disabled workers find jobs outside our organization that can sustain them. While they couldn't hire every disabled person in their region, they had the operational capacity to train thousands in the retail business and find better jobs for them so that they could escape from dependency. The organization's new measure of success? Increasing the number of disabled people placed in sustainable jobs. This wig transformed the organization. They helped thousands become self-reliant and find a new sense of self-worth, while sustaining the day-to-day financial and operational results that made their mission possible. Focusing the organization. Up to this point, we've talked a lot about narrowing the focus as it relates to you and your team. This is in itself a huge challenge. Narrowing the focus for an entire organization, or even a large portion of an organization, however, is a much bigger challenge. Although we'll cover this in more detail in Section 3, we want you to gain a high-level understanding of the rules for applying Discipline 1 organizationally before we move into Discipline 2. Rule number 1, no team focuses on more than 2 wigs at the same time. This rule acts like a governor on an engine. When you are deeply into the 4 disciplines of execution, there may be dozens or even hundreds of wigs across the entire organization. But the key is not to overload any single leader, team, or individual performer. Remember, they are all dealing with the incessant demands of the whirlwind. Keep this rule in mind as you consider the remaining 3 rules. If you violate this one, you'll have lost your focus as an organization. Rule number 2, the battles you choose must win the war. Whether it's a military conflict or the war on hunger, cancer, or poverty, there's a relationship between battles and wars. The only reason you fight a battle is to win the war. The sole purpose of wigs at lower levels in the organization is to help achieve the wigs at the higher levels. It isn't enough that the lower level wigs support or align with the higher level wigs. The lower level wigs must ensure the success of the higher wigs. For example, a provider of internet financial services we worked with knew they had to increase revenues from $160 million to $200 million by fiscal year end in order to fulfill the expectation of their investors. A new outside sales team committed to provide $8 million of new revenue, and the major account division committed the other $32 million. But what about the other major division, the technology team? What role did they play in this revenue wig? Did they have any role at all? At first, they felt left out of the wig. After some careful research, they determined that the most impactful lower-level wig that they could set for themselves would be to improve their record for continuous, uninterrupted service. This was major criteria new customers would use to choose a provider, perhaps the most important criteria. As it turned out, this group had to fight the key battle in achieving the wig, which in turn cleared the path for the other divisions as well. Once the top-level wig is chosen, the next question is critical. Instead of asking, what are all the things we could do to win this war, a common mistake that results in a long to-do list, ask, what are the fewest battles necessary to win the war? The answer to that question determines which and how many lower-level wigs will be needed to achieve the top-level wig. As you begin to choose the battles to win the war, you have begun to both clarify and simplify your strategy. Rule number 3. Senior leaders can veto, but not dictate. The highest levels of execution are never reached when the strategy is devised solely by the top leaders of the organization and simply handed down to the leaders in the teams below. Without involvement, you cannot create high levels of commitment that execution requires. While senior leaders will undoubtedly determine the top-level WIGs, they must allow the leaders at each level below to define the WIGs for their teams. This not only leverages the knowledge of those leaders, but also creates a greater sense of ownership and involvement. Simply put, they become more engaged in a goal that they chose themselves and that supports a worthy organizational goal. Senior leaders then exercise the right to veto if the battles chosen are not going to win the war. Implementing Discipline 1 enables an organization to quickly turn a broad strategy into clearly defined WIGs at every level. It is not solely a top-down process, but neither is it exclusively bottom-up. Through this process, the senior leader's choice of the overall WIG brings clarity top-down, and allowing the leaders and teams below to choose their WIGs bottom-up brings engagement. In the process, the entire organization mobilizes around the focus that matters most and takes ownership for driving results. Rule number 4, all WIGs must have a finish line in the form of from X to Y by when. Every WIG at every level must contain a clear, measurable result, as well as the date by which that result must be achieved. For instance, a revenue-focused WIG might be increased percent of annual revenue from new products from 15% to 21% by December 31st. This from X to Y by when format recognizes where you are today, where you want to go, and the deadline for reaching that goal. As deceptively simple as this formula may seem, many leaders often struggle to translate their strategic concepts into a single from X to Y by when finish line. But once they've done it, both they and the team they lead have gained tremendous clarity. Typically, however, goals lack this kind of clarity. We constantly see goals that no one can achieve because there's no finish line, no way of telling whether you completed the goal or not, and where you stand at any given point. For instance, from a major global retailer, improve inventory processing. From a British publisher, develop and strengthen new and existing client relationships. From an Australian tourist authority, influence effective tourism workforce development in Queensland. From a European investment firm, successfully convert our portfolio to a life cycle strategy. From a multinational agribusiness company, identify, recruit, and retain the best employees. These goals lack the measurement that can tell the team when they've won the game. Improve inventory processing. How much? Strengthen new client relationships. How do we measure stronger? Successfully convert a portfolio to a life cycle strategy. How will we know when we've done that? Effective lag measures for a WIG sound like this. Improve inventory processing by increasing per year inventory turns from 8 to 10 by December 31st. Raise our client relationship scores from 40 to 70 on the loyalty scale within 2 years. Move 40% of our customers from fixed categories to life cycle categories of investments within 5 years. Launch the new CRM solution to an 85% quality beta rating by the end of the fiscal year. If a goal is wildly important, surely you should be able to tell if you've achieved it or not. The formula from X to Y by when makes that possible. In setting this finish line, we often hear the question, over what time period should the achievement of a WIG be spread? Our answer? It depends. Since teams and organizations often think and measure themselves in terms of a calendar or a fiscal year, a 1-year time frame makes a good starting point for a WIG. That said, remember that a WIG is not a strategy. A WIG is a tactical goal with a limited time frame. We've seen some WIGs that take 2 years and some that take 6 months. The length of a project WIG, such as complete the new website within budget by July 1, will usually correspond with the time frame of the project itself. Use your own judgment. Just remember that a wig should be within the time frame that balances the need to create a compelling vision with the need to create an achievable goal.